My earliest remembrances of experiences in church occurred in the rural South when I would visit my grandmother's church in Aubrey, Arkansas. And I saw people falling out, and where the Holy Spirit consumed them, and they were taken to this other space. I say that when you're in that space, the air is quivering, at times, because it's just so different than anything else anywhere. So I didn't have the knowledge to know that they were out of their bodies when that was happening. But I was so moved by women singing that I had a feeling inside of me. I didn't understand what it was, but I knew that feeling was the feeling, even at the age of 5. It was like something about that feeling. I said, whoa, I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand why they were falling out. But as time went on, I believe I played the flute, chose the flute as the instrument I really wanted to play because of those ladies' voices, the timbre of it, and the fact that the sound hit your body. That's a big part of that African root that exists within us. And it's also in other cultures also, but the sound's gotta hit your body. And you have to feel it so you're inside the sound. But that point in church, Roscoe Mitchell so brilliantly pointed out that when he heard Coltrane in his later years, and people call it free. I don't necessarily like that term because Bobby Bradford astutely said, "Who's free?"
Wow. Wow.
Okay, all right.
Fair enough. Yeah. Wow.
So,
Wow.
but that's, I could connect what Coltrane was doing to church so strongly because Coltrane's coming out of a line of preachers, and he grew up with those experiences in church, and that's a huge part of his music, especially towards the end, and maybe later on we can talk about that in greater detail. I believe that the work of John Coltrane it's indescribable. Uh, it's unmeasurable. Uh, if we look at bebop and the geniuses, the convergence of these geniuses that change music, Charles Christopher Parker, Thelonious Monk, Sarah Vaughan, um, Max Roach, Bud Powell. Um, we can go on and mention that they change the vocabulary of jazz. And they were so expansive in their vision of a new modernity that it's taken jazz decades and decades and decades to try to digest that. We're continuing to digest what was left behind then. Okay, Coltrane comes out of that, connected to Dizzy Gillespie. He played in Dizzy's octet. He worked closely with Thelonious Monk. He worked closely with Miles Davis and did all these recordings and had that first-hand experience with those geniuses. And 57, Giant Steps comes along. He has this spiritual epiphany in his life. And he said, after the Epiphany, it took a while to get to where he needed to be to create a love supreme. And Alice so profoundly discusses how he sort of separated himself from everybody and went upstairs for days, and he came down and he had the full picture of what he wanted to do. And you see the score, it's unlike any other score we've ever seen. And so this man was touched and called by God to do what he did. And he gave so many other people the opportunity to say, I'm not perfect, I'm growing, but it's all with God. That's what the Love Supreme poem said. And he took the rhythm of the Psalms and the Bible and transferred those to the rhythm that he would use. So it's like he was playing the text, with the rhythms and inflections that come from the speaking of the Psalms, which have been set for 2,500 years and more now. So you think people are going back to those Psalms again over and over and over to set them. It's heavy. I've set maybe 3, and it's something that just really stays with you. So he had all of that. But this man was a scientist of the highest order. So you put somebody that understood the human condition like very few others did in the 20th century. You put this with all of the scientific exploration and organization of music, and he took this giant leap past bebop. Then he got into this world in 60, and he's taken modes that are from all the parts of the world and putting them together in what he's doing, like Yusef Lateef and others, who had this deep desire to reach all over. George Russell, the great, composer, theoretician, same thing, and his Lydian chromatic concept of tonal organization. And Eric Dolphy was in that circle also. So they were all sharing knowledge together. And so it was a compendium of scientists in a way. That's the way I see it, But Coltrane, it's like he was looking, he had to just look at the titles, interstellar space, and interstellar regions, all of these things, like Einstein in a certain way, with his theory of relativity, which Coltrane was also obsessively studying. So you put all of that together, and you've got a human being that's like a preacher times 1,000, and it's just, and then he gets into the end of his life, and it's the sound world of when people are falling out. Because you listen to those records, and people would run away, And Billy Hart told me once of
You mean like when that music was being made
right.
live? Wow.
Maybe they could go up to early 65, and then after that, it was like you either loved it or hated.
Uh-huh.
And Elvin Jones said one of the funniest quotes in all of music, when somebody asked him about Train's late period, and he said, only poets can understand it. That was pretty hilarious. But if we put all of that together, in a way, for me, I feel like he was dealing with ways to find the God particle and have it in music, and have it in pure sound, then have it in structural music intervallically, like, and just the things that he was doing. He was so far ahead of everybody else. Who could understand it? Okay, Alice understood it. McCoy understood it. The great quartet, they understood what he was doing, but there were very few other people. And it's so interesting to me that both McCoy Tyner and Alice Coltrane were deeply influenced by Bud Powell. So Bud is still in the mix, even towards the end. And then at the very end, I've been playing over and over and over and over and over and over Expression.
I just listened to it yesterday.
Oh. Yeah. And for me, the two cuts there is Offering and Expression. And he's come full circle. So he's starting to bring harmony back. He's using even some of the harmonic motion that came out of the exploration, out of the Giant Steps period, the kind of moving harmony from a third away. The musicians would know what I'm talking about. And it's like he's bringing all that together. And I remember Stanley Crouch told me he heard either for Alvin or McCoy that Train wanted to even do a couple of gigs with the quartet again before he died. So I think this man was just, he couldn't live to be an old man. He went through too much, in the sense that just being able to break down all of this material and look at his relationship to the universe. I talk a lot now about the Hubble telescope and the fact that now we can see so deeply into the universe, and we can use that to be brought into the art. And if Coltrane would have lived longer, my God, what that man would have done. But for me, that music, the late period of Coltrane, the implications of it have not been studied enough. And what I've done is it has profoundly experienced the classical music I'm writing at this point in time. I'm taking concepts I've learned through all these years of studying Train, and sometimes it's just sonic. It's not about particular notes. It's a sound to get a feeling, which is very evolved. That's where a lot of 21st century music is right now. But he was there in the 60s, and he had a knowledge of harmony and theory that was so far beyond everybody else, I think. That's my humble opinion. And so why aren't you going to study something like that? And the fact that it hasn't been studied enough, you know what it's like? It's like this tree. Do we see all of the oranges that are on this tree? This tree is going to feed more than a few people. That's Coltrane's art.
Wow. And I want to ask too, because you've spent so much of your life in Southern California, did you ever cross paths with Alice Coltrane?
No. And I say sadly no, but when I was 19 years old, I wrote her a letter. And she was still in Dix Hills. I was so obsessed with Coltrane. She answered me. And, what am I going to say at the age of 19 to Alice Coltrane? But she took the time to answer me.
Wow.
And I still have that letter at home. I treasure it. And I told Ravi Coltrane about that one day, and he said, well, that's Mom.
Wow.
Yeah, just the kindness and the compassion. But just to say one thing real quick about Alice.
Please.
That's somebody else that really did not get her due. because of the way that she figured out the things that she played harmonically with Coltrane and expression to me was so original. The solos are so great on that record that she played. And when Train died, Universal Consciousness was another record that just, and she's playing clusters on the organ and harmonies that no one ever played before. Why didn't she get her due? As Aretha Franklin would say, why didn't she get her propers?
Right.
You know, give her propers. You know, it just really disturbs me. That lady was such a genius. And what the two of them did together was, just for me, it's just some of the most important music I know by far, you know.
And she really, I mean, speaking maybe from a position of some ignorance, but to me, she opened up so many these sound worlds that are just so deep and so rich with her playing and with her musical concepts. I mean, it is. It's like people know her name, but it is kind of one of these travesties that, she's really underappreciated relative to a lot of the other artists out there.
And that group, that last Coltrane band on Expression, with
Pharaoh's on there too, right?
yeah, Pharaoh is on there. I think the cuts, and this is not to diss Pharaoh, and anyway, I'm not doing that at all.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just saying, I think because the things that they did together, where Pharaoh's playing piccolo and Coltrane's playing alto flute, I love it. And other things that Pharaoh and Train have done together, but just to hear Coltrane as the only horn sometimes, because he could fully explore his innovation. And he's such a giving soul that you can hear him taking in the whole band. And Rashid Ali making the transition from, the genius of Elvin Jones, who's like the mathematician of the highest order, and the way that he could divide time. It was like, they say that when math is taken to a really high level, it becomes intensely creative. Well, Elvin had that. The way he would just divide up time, it's like mind-boggling and so evolved. But to get to the point where Rashid Ali did what he did, no one eclipsed what Elvin did, but it was a new pathway that Rashid and others took that connected to that point of falling out, to me in a way, where the time is dissolved in a church experience, and things are just kind of rolling, and the time is freer. It's liberated, and so Coltrane went there, which made all of the sense in the world because it's all coming out of the church.